Um, I used to get in a lot of trouble because of Lou Palmer. You remember him? Great newscaster and sportscaster and everything else. We had a lot of long trips that we took with UConn basketball and football. Like, you have no idea what a long drive is until you go to Orono, Maine, especially in the middle of winter. And one day we were coming home and we just couldn't, you can't even get radio stations. You're out of touch with everybody. And so we started to play WTIC trivia. Who was Bob Steele's secretary? Oh, I was the only one that remembered. Mary Serbeck. Oh. How about that? And there were a bunch. Who was Frank Atwood?
Who was Frank Atwood?
No, his secretary.
Oh,
Mary Ellen.
Mary Ellen Shea. And it was that kind of a thing. And then I started telling him that I'd gotten a memo that said, from now on, when Bob Steele's on vacation, Arnold Dean will do the program. And I thought, well, that's very nice, and I'm sure they mean well. I'm not crazy about it because I hate getting up in the morning. But I guess I can't say no. So I was talking with Lou about it. I said, he told me I can't do a work for the day, that's his thing. I can't do his weight on Fridays, and so on. I said, because he doesn't want me doing the things that are exclusively for him. So I said, I don't know what I'm going to do 4.5 hours a day. He said, well, why don't you do variations of it? And this was Lou's idea. I will not take the blame. He said, why don't you do a bird for the day? I said, that's funny. Bird for the day is the sparrow. And then I'll give a little of the background and so on. And I said, well, what about the weight? He said, why don't you on Friday say, I'm not supposed to give you my weight, you wouldn't care about that, but it's my height. I'm 2 inches shorter than I was last week. I'm going to start stretching exercises and so on. We came through a whole list of things that I thought were hilarious. Bob Steele was not amused. And when he came back, he took another week's vacation about a month later, and a memo came out saying, Bob Steele is going to be on vacation, Brad Davis will be there. And I said, well, good, I accomplished something. Look, I've got a lot more that I could say. After all, I came there in 1965. I'm still there now. As Bill mentioned, I went in and visited with them yesterday, the day before, and they're even talking about finding some things that they want me to do. I have a selfish reason for wanting to go on, even for some pay. I'd have to be paid to make this work, but at least now and then, because it would give me my 8th decade in broadcasting, in commercial broadcasting. And that's kind of a nice personal goal that I'd like to reach. One other note. I got a little bit of a touch of something. The other note is that I was reading Dom Amore's column this morning in the Hartford Courant, and he was talking about 9/11 and how the survivors of that event all wanted to meet the Yankees, and the players were a little bit, what do they want to meet us for? What does that have to do with this? And he mentioned that one little boy who lost his father walked in, and he walked up to Paul O'Neill, who'd had trouble with an ankle injury or something, and he said, how's your foot? Can you believe that? So, very touched. And a soft spell right now anyway, but I thought that said something about what sports can mean when it's done right, Jimmy? All right, I've talked more than long enough. Thank you all. I'll continue to work, and I'll continue to come to these events every year, I promise.
Arnold mentioned Phil Steele, with whom I spoke just last week about attending today. Phil has compiled a 10-volume collection called Bob Steele's Decade. 10 individually bound books of recollections, cartoons, memorabilia, awards, pictures. He's made 50 copies. His purpose is to supply each set to 50 of the libraries around the state. He's got a dozen or so who have already purchased them. They cost $350 for the set. And he called me to see if I could get someone to sponsor, Crowley Auto Group, to sponsor the purchase by the Hartford Public Library, which doesn't have the money. Well, I promised him that I'd mention that today, so if any of you, whether you live in Connecticut or not, if you know anybody that might be interested in a series called Bob Steele's Century. Phil Steele, I have his telephone number, be happy to put you in touch with him. He's no longer actively practicing law. Oh, there he is! By George, I didn't see you there, Phil. Come on up here and tell us yourself. He must have just arrived.
Yes, I walked in as Arnold was.
Has more hair than his father.
I walked in just as Arnold was commenting on Bob Steele. I thought that was terrific. Tell me if you can hear me. I'm going to read something to you, so I'm going to put the mic in here. But if you can't hear me, I'll take it out again. I really loved those stories, Arnold, that you gave, because this collection that Bill just mentioned to you, by the way, it's the Hartford Public Library was looking to Mr. Crowley not to pay for its set, but to raise $7,500 to do an exhibit at the library from the contents of this collection, the original material, to mount it and display it for people to come in and see, parts of this collection. And then, if they could raise enough money beyond that, to have our family donate the original material, or a large part of it at least, to the library, to their Hartford collection. The University of Maryland School of Broadcasting, thanks to Nick Bertel, requested that asked if the family would contribute all this material to them, and we haven't really decided yet where it belongs, where it should go. It would be lovely to keep it in Hartford. But the University of Maryland has a School of Broadcasting. Arthur Godfrey's papers and many, many greats in the history of radio are there at their School of Broadcasting and museum and library. But the Hartford collection, if they can raise enough money, they would like to do the work required to archive the original material, to properly preserve it and index it. And there's a lot of work involved. If anyone knows anything about libraries or archiving, it is a big job. And Brad Davis, I should mention here, was the very first contributor. As soon as he found out about this, he said, I want to give $1,000. And he wrote a check for $1,000 for this cause. I was going to bring along the Chief Development Officer's card with me. I have some of her cards. I forgot to bring them. But it wouldn't be difficult. If anybody would like to send $10 or $25 to the Hartford Public Library for this effort, just write on the bottom of the check, for the Bob Steele collection, so they won't mix it up with other money, and they can count it towards their goal of trying to make all of this happen. But anyway, that's those stories that Arnold just told you about Bob Steele. Were so. I wish very much that in a way this collection went on. This took me 7-8 years really to put together, scanning thousands of photographs and other items from his scrapbooks and things that he had saved. There's just so much material. You can imagine. Some people save things, some people don't. But if you save things like he did, and you lived 91 years, you're probably going to have a lot of material by the time you pass on. And he certainly did. There's some amazing, amazing material. Letters. I'm going to read you a letter here from a listener who was not happy about something a joke that he told on the air, and a reply that was sent to this lady afterwards, which I think are very interesting. But this collection became, so many volumes, and there's so much material. But in the last volume of it, one of the things that I included were the comments from many of you, many people at WTIC who wrote notes to the family, or who otherwise were interviewed on the Connecticut Public Television program that they did after he died, and on many other occasions. Of course, when people are talking about someone who has just passed on, they may not tell you the whole truth. And so it's a nice way, kind of a fitting way, and although they don't, everything they say pretty much is very nice and flattering about Bob Steele, but still within it I think you can see an awful lot of why people love Bob Steele, or what they loved about listening to him, what they found fascinating and so endearing about his program. But if you could only add a little bit more of the story, if you could only add the kinds of things that Arnold just shared with you, it would have been, I think that would have been an even more interesting addition to this kind of what I like to think of as a work of history, if not autobiography practically, because so much of it is in Bob's own words. But throughout most of these volumes, there is a great deal of the other side of Bob Steele, because I've included his diaries. And in his diaries, you kind of ask yourself, who is he writing for? Who does anyone write a diary for? But there's so many candid moments in these diaries about his gambling, about spats at WTIC, about many, many things that and many other things that go into this collection. You see a lot more of Bob Steele than just the image of Bob Steele that you heard on the radio. But it's so great to have to hear what stories like Arnold's. I had never heard that about him filling in for me one morning, but it's a good story, Arnold. I like it. Now, if I can find this in here, this joke my father told one morning. Forgot to remember what page it's on. This is in volume 6, which covers the years 1963 to 1971. Any of you there then?
Yes.
I think so.